Okay, today we're going to finish up Joshua 6. So the reading is Joshua 6:22 through the end of the chapter 27. It's 5 verses. So pause me and go for it. Okay, so Joshua sent the same two guys that Rahab had protected on the roof of her house. He sent them back to, or not back, sent them ahead, or sent them to make sure she was okay. And so a couple of, and so they did that. They brought them all out. So a couple of questions came, well, actually just one question. So if her house was on the wall, remember the red cord hanging out the window, and so they would know which one was hers, but also the walls of Jericho fell when they went around on the seventh day and shouted and blew the trumpets. So did only half the wall fall, or did everything but her house fall? And God is capable of anything, and we don't really know. I mean, there's lots of suppositions, but you know, you can think out of the box and figure it out yourself, and that's probably just as good an answer as anything you can find, or anything I found, I'll put it that way. So they brought Rahab out, and they put her and her family in a place outside the camp, because Rahab was a Gentile, and Gentiles and Jews were very separate, and Jews were holy and Gentiles were not. So they had to put her outside the camp until she became a Jew basically, and embraced the faith. And she did go on so they burned the whole city. We'll get to that. They burned the whole city and everything in it but the metals. The metals would have just melted. So the metals were supposed to be in tribute to God and put in the treasury for God, and he had been very specific about that earlier in the chapter, and that's going to come back to haunt them. So Joshua spared Rahab, and she lives among the Israelites today. She actually married a man named Salmon, Salmon, so you can call him Salmon or Salmon or Salmon or whatever you want to call him, but he was a Jew, and he was David's great-grandfather, I think, something like that. So she is in the line, the royal line, which eventually led to Jesus. Is that right? Yeah. So, and then Joshua cursed the city. So he says, you know what? We're not going to build this city back. It's an evil city, and whoever builds it back, it's going to be cursed, basically cursed. And that does come true in 1 Kings 16:30 through 34. You can read about that if you're interested. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. And basically it was Joshua's fame and the fear of the Israelites. There were so many of them, and they were so well organized at this point. And remember, we talked about the tribes. These are little tribes and fortified cities, but they did not have, they might have been organized or even bigger, but they didn't have God with them, and they weren't fighting with the same efficiency and fervor that the Israelites were. The other thing that I wanted to mention today is I read something just last night about the total destruction of these people. These people were very evil, and God had said back to Abraham that the full wickedness of the Amorites had not come to fruition. So the Amorites are the Canaanites, and these people, they did child sacrifice. They were just very, very evil people, and that doesn't make it any, well, it makes it a little bit easier to understand the total destruction of even the children. But if you look at it from that point of view, it might help you understand, might not. We don't have to understand God. We just have to trust him. So that's the lesson for today. Trust God.